The final component of Durkheim's definition of religion is the church. So religion is a unified system of beliefs and practices as they relate to the sacred and the profane that are collectively practiced by the church. Now, Durkheim's term church is perhaps narrow and I'll say maybe a little dated because it uses one specific tradition, the term from one specific tradition, in order to describe all religions. But even though that term is maybe is narrow, the concept behind it is really quite important. So again, Durkheim defines the church not as the building, not as structure or even community that has to do specifically with one particular faith, as we normally think of the term church. Instead, he says, a church is a moral community made up of all the faithful, both laity and priests. The church is not at all the structure, it's the people, and it's all the people who collectively shared this unified system of beliefs and practices, these beliefs and practices that reify one another, who collectively have an understanding, share an understanding of what the sacred is, what the profane is, and what are the rules and prohibitions that protect one from the other, that isolate and protect the sacred from the profane. And so together he calls them a moral community. A moral community, not the way we might use the term in everyday use, as in what I believe is true and acceptable versus what's wrong. A moral community simply says a group of people who collectively share an understanding of what's acceptable and appropriate for this particular group. So there's no implied understanding of what is moral and what isn't moral. As good anthropologists, that's not our job. As good anthropologists, our job is to be cultural relativists and to understand what counts as moral for the community that we're studying. So a moral community simply describes a group of people, which Durkheim calls a church, a group of people who share an understanding of what counts as right and wrong, who share an understanding of what things are acceptable and collectively agree on what is unacceptable. Does that mean that everyone in that community follows that agreement? Of course not, right? We have ideas of what's moral, and then we have our own behaviors, which sometimes are moral and sometimes aren't. We have people in our community that we identify as being immoral or having or doing things that break the rules, but it's with an understanding, a shared understanding of what the rules are in the first place.